Hello and welcome to my TV show recaps. I will be recapping TV shows on streaming services such as HBO, Netflix, Hulu, and talking about hot topics. If you're interested, please subscribe. So we're back in Salt Lake City for the final episode. Thank God this whole season is coming to an end. The final episode finally opens up with Lisa Barlow at her 90s slash 80s themed Vita Vodka event where she's going around the hall just saying, I love it, I love it. Again, Lisa Barlow to me is kind of contrived and boring, so I don't find any scenes with her entertaining. So the next scene is with Jen Shah. We see that she's planning on downsizing and moving from the current house she has. Now, I'm not sure if this house she's living in is the same Shaw chalet she lived in for last season, but either way, she's meeting with her movers and planning on downsizing. During this scene is where we learn that her retainer's fee for her attorneys are about $2 million for her federal case. So this is really expensive, and she's gonna need to sort of scale back on the lavish lifestyle that she's already used to. So we see that Jen Shah is actually downsizing from a 9,000 square feet house to a 4,500 square feet house. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of worried about Jen Shah. Her last defendant has, I think, pled guilty and is cooperating with the feds. So I don't know how Jen Shah can escape prison time for the crimes she's been accused of committing. And I just have to point out that Jen Shah has been optimistic throughout this entire season, even throughout this scene. But for me, I feel like she's been slightly delusional. Her case has been built up for about 10 years, and I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for her. So anyways, Jen Shah ends up, telling her movers that, hey, I have a $2 million retainer. I don't know if she was expecting like a discount, but those guys were like, no. The moving fee is going to be about, I think, $8,000 to $10,000, which is a lot. Again, I don't know exactly where Jen Shah is still getting all this money from, but I just hope it doesn't go to evidence as to hurt her case. So we have Jen Shah in the confessional saying that, she's really thinking about how this might be the last everything she spends with her family, maybe the last holidays, the last New Year's or whatever. And she also mentions that her trial starts March 7th. Now, I know that they have started filming the new season, so I'm expecting to see some exclusive footage of her trial in the upcoming season. To me, is sort of a brave and bold move by both Jen Shah and her legal team. I mean, to be filming a reality show during a federal fraud case against you is really big. I mean, for me, I would probably just quit the show because I would think, what if they use something I say on the show as evidence to sort of prosecute me even further? So, that's Jen Shah's risk to take, and I feel like she's willing to bet everything on the money she's getting from the show and also on just continuing with the story that she's sticking to, that she's innocent. So the next scene we have Heather at her father's memorial service. I really don't think Heather has a storyline or anything of value to add to this entire series. I think that she has sort of exhausted the ex-Mormon storyline and it's becoming to get a little bit tiring. All she talks about is her being an ex-Mormon. I mean, we don't even get to see her date or do anything fun. The only thing Heather does as of now is for her to sort of be an instigator among the women and really push for fights within the group, which to me is just not it's just not interesting for me to watch. I do like it when housewives instigate, but I also like it when the instigators have their own storyline. As of now, Heather does not have a storyline. She's just an instigator and she's of no use to me as a viewer. So next we have Meredith at her jewelry photo shoot. Here she's kind of showcasing her jewelry along with a campaign for, I think it's GLAAD or an LGBTQIA organization. I can actually say that Meredith has a legitimate jewelry business. I've seen some celebrities in her pieces and they actually look good. My only complaint is that the photo shoot kind of looked busy. I really didn't get to see her jewelry displayed in a way that in a way that kind of showcased the beauty of her pieces. That's kind of like the only takeaway I have from this entire photo shoot. She then goes on to talk about how important it is for her to sort of showcase other communities in a positive light. And I think that's good for her to acknowledge her son and show support for her son and the community that he belongs to. Just side note, I think that Seth is so annoying. I kind of feel like Meredith cringes whenever she's around Seth or whenever she has to film with Seth. I don't blame her if she did step out on Seth, or maybe if they had an open marriage in the past, because I don't think those two are actually equally yoked in their relationship. She definitely seems to be a more mature, thinking person, while Seth seems to be sort of overly playful, and you can see that sometimes it gets tiring and she's sort of tired of him being so jovial all the time. So up next we enter Cringe City, which is Whitney and her husband. I guess she's trying to set up something romantic for him. This scene I could have done without. All I could remember is she's probably doing this because she's blown so much of their savings on her line Whitney Rose or Wild Rose, whatever it's called. I mean, she's blown so much of probably his retirement and maybe his older kids' inheritance on whatever skincare she's trying to sell. And I'm just not buying it. She's just not interesting to me anymore. She has no storyline ever since her dad refused to film with her. So this little struggle romantic scene, I guess, was just a scene filler for the final episode of the season. I mean, guys, I can't even show half of the pictures from the scene. I mean, I just started YouTube like a month ago. I'm definitely sure they're gonna snatch my channel down if I show any of the still pictures, but it was definitely a cringe moment, and I just wish I never I wish I actually fast forwarded the scene, but I had to watch it for you guys. So just fast forward it, please. Up next, we have Lisa at her Vita drink launch party. I mean, Lisa is so exhausting. Just watching her in her confessionals talking about how she has thrown together this 80s slash 90s kind of theme party, and then her saying, oh, I actually don't want anyone dressed up like people from the 80s. Oh, I don't want you dressed up as Madonna. I'm just like, Madonna was the 80s. Like, why would you even throw a theme party, then tell people not to dress up as the theme of the event in which you've organized? Lisa is just so tiring. Like, she needs some vegetables and just keep it moving, please. And just as a side note, I actually like the decor of the event space. I mean, for an 80s slash 90s themed celebration, the event planners actually did their job. So kudos to whoever the planners were. So let me just break down the fashions. Heather always looks a mess, so I don't even understand what she's wearing. She's like overly tanned. Her earrings are awful. Yeah, whatever. Then we move on to Jen Shaw. Jen actually looks kind of good. I'm digging her little turban, but Coach Shaw is dressed like he just came back from the office and he's running to a party. Not good. So I'm not sure if he actually wanted to participate in the theme of the party. I hate to say it, but Whitney actually kind of looks good. I like her little yellow jacket and ensemble. I think that for the 80s being a neon type era, she kind of, got the memo. Moving on to Jenny. I mean, I don't like Jenny. I'd rather not talk about her, but she's here. So she says that she's dressed up as Whitney Houston. Whatever, girl. Bye. So we cut to the scene of Meredith and Seth on their way to the party, and Seth asks Meredith if she's kind of excited to see the ladies. Mind you, I think this is the first time that the ladies are meeting together as a group. So Meredith explains to Seth that she is not excited to see the ladies. The only time that she might be excited is if she was sure that the ladies were going to be nice to her. And I was like, girl, don't hold your breath. They're not nice. And of course, before Meredith arrives at the party, who do we see talking about her? Heather. No plotline Heather always has to keep someone else's name in her mouth. So she asks Lisa if she has kind of squashed the beef with Meredith. And Lisa had the audacity to say, "Oh, I just don't know, if I like Meredith. Um, you know, I've been so close with her family." I was like, Lisa, shut up. Just shut up. Lisa is such a liar that I don't know how she has been able to maintain friendships in her adult life. This is the same woman that, spilled all of Meredith's alleged tea during a hot mic moment, and now she's sitting on a sofa saying that she has been so close to Meredith's family and Meredith. I just don't think Lisa Barlow is a good friend. Meredith finally arrives at the party, and I kind of like what she's wearing. It's like this low cut purple dress number, and I think it's really pretty. But anyways, as she walks towards the women, Heather of course keeps talking about Meredith. Heather makes it a point to instigate about other people's friendships. She kind if she knows like a weak spot in your friendship, she's going to continue to poke the bear and poke at that weak spot. That is why I don't like her. She comes in as someone who wants to help the women resolve their friendship issues, but she's actually just making things worse by bringing up tension between the women at awkward times. So we cut to Heather in the confessionals talking about Lisa and Meredith's friendship. She's sort of expressing her concern about how, they haven't really resolved their issues. To me, again, I would be on Heather's side if I thought she was genuine. And the reason I know she's not genuine is because she has no storyline of her own. How is she going to occupy camera time if she doesn't have a storyline of her own? By talking about other people. That's the only reason why Heather has Lisa and Meredith's friendship in her mouth. So we cut to Mary entering the event, and she actually has this really cute gold blazer on. I kind of like it for her. This is the first time I kind of liked what she's wearing. So then we cut to her in the confessionals, and the producer is asking her why she isn't ordering any of the Vita vodka. And she was like, it kind of just tastes like water, it tastes bland. And I freaking rolled on the floor because I was like, is anyone surprised that something Lisa would put out would taste like trash? I mean, have you seen what this woman eats? Of course, her alcohol doesn't taste right. I mean, she is just cheap all around. Mary was then like, the alcohol has an aftertaste. It's kind of bland, just like Lisa. And I was like, yes, someone has finally said it. Lisa is all outside facade, but really, if you scratch beneath the surface, there's nothing to Lisa at all. Then you have this one in the confessionals talking about, oh, common decency is when you see someone, you say hi in regards to Mary. And I was like, girl, Mary doesn't need to say hi to you. You guys had your little beef, you guys had your little moment, and Mary is actually doing the right thing by avoiding Jenny. Mary doesn't need to speak to Jenny, and no one does, to be frank. Jenny added no value to this show. In fact, she brought down this entire show because she and her negative fans on Instagram and on Twitter, just make the show such a chore to watch, knowing that, the fellow people I'm watching it with have the same ignorant views as Jenny. And, she goes on to say, oh, am I invisible to you, Mary? And I'm like, yeah, you're invisible. You're invisible to everyone because you have no value to the show. This entire episode just shows her obsession with Mary, and I'm so proud that Mary ignored her at this party because she deserved to be ignored. Mary paid her dust, and rightfully so. So next we have Coach Shaw thanking Mary for inviting Jen to her church. I guess Mary's congregation were really welcoming to Jen, and Coach Shaw kind of just gives Mary a heads up that, hey, I really appreciated that effort you made. And then Mary says, oh, you know why the people I'm at church were so nice to Jen? Because I told them to be nice. And I was like, Mary, this is sounding a little culty to me. Like, you really shouldn't be saying things like this. This is why people suspect that your church is actually a cult. So Whitney decides to interrupt the conversation between Coach Shaw and Mary. She sort of wants to pull Mary aside to kind of hash things out with Mary. Mary seems a little bit hesitant, and I don't blame her. Every time she's spoken with Whitney, it's been, hell. Whitney has always blown things up and kind of put words in Mary's mouth. So I think Mary rightfully wanted to avoid having a chat with Whitney. It's so funny because Mary was like, I don't want to talk to you. I can smell alcohol in your breath. And I was like, Mary, girl, you guys are at a tequila event. Of course she has been drinking, you know? So Mary ends up agreeing to have a chat with Whitney, and basically their conversation went on as to why Whitney talked about Mary's church. Mary seemed a little bit hurt by it, and it seemed like Mary did not expect for Whitney to talk badly about her church, especially since Whitney's dad came to Mary's church in the first season. So Whitney goes on to explain how sorry she was about, kind of talking about Mary's church in a bad light. And here, Whitney was kind of honest. She said that, she really didn't say anything that wasn't already out there about Mary's church. Everything Whitney brought to the table, to the show, was something that we already sort of knew as an audience. So, as Whitney and Mary were trying to solve their problems, this one just pops her head into the conversation and starts yelling. She starts yelling at Mary, "Why did you hurt me? Why did you hurt me, Mary?" I feel like she just wanted to have a moment with Mary and to have a combative scene with Mary during the last filming or taping of the show. Jenny is a follower and she's also a pathetic excuse for a human being. Her niece made a video on TikTok earlier in the season detailing kind of like the shady past of her and Dewey. And looking back, I should have believed that video. I kind of gave her a little bit of grace saying, oh, maybe this is a bitter relative trying to throw dirt on her aunt's shine. But with the way Jenny has conducted herself with Mary throughout this season, and also with the way she conducted herself previously on social media like Facebook and Twitter, Jenny's just pathetic and she's a sorry excuse for a woman. And make no mistakes, I'm not excusing what Mary said about Jenny. I think it was absolutely wrong and abhorrent. But I just feel like there's something about Jenny that is not kosher. And the way she interacts with Mary is highly suspicious. And her Facebook posts kind of just confirm the type of human being she is. She's just pathetic. So during this scene, even Whitney is confused as to why Jenny is interrupting and butting into her and Mary's discussion. And I think at some point during that whole moment, Whitney realized that Jenny kind of just wanted a moment for herself, and Whitney sort of removed herself from having a conversation with Mary and allowed Jenny to have her moment in the spotlight. So Mary then gets up from, where Jenny is, to kind of walk away with Whitney in order to have a more private conversation, and Jenny literally just starts following Mary and Whitney. She starts harassing Mary, saying, "Mary, repeat what you said to me. Repeat what you said under your breath." And I was like, "You're acting too much," because at some point you have to realize that when you want to sort of have an argument with someone and they're not matching your energy, you should probably back down. But Jenny did not back down. She just continued to escalate the situation until she then threw a glass in Mary's direction. We then had Jen Shaw in the confessionals, kind of like saying, "Girl, I was the first one on this entire series cast to throw a glass, so try harder, Jenny," which was kind of funny to me because it's obvious that Jenny's entire storyline in her head is beefing with Mary, but Mary's just not giving it to her. And I think that that's really aggravating Jenny. After Jenny threw the glass, we have her still at the event yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs aggressively, saying, "Why don't you talk to me, Mary? Why don't you talk to me, Mary?" And it's like, Mary doesn't want to talk to you. Mary doesn't want to give you an audience. Just leave her alone. Jenny just proved herself to be such an aggressive person and such an angry person that it was kind of scary. Mary ended up leaving the event, and I don't blame her. At that moment in the confessional, she kind of goes on to say that, no one checked up on her. And, I feel like in that moment was where she decided that she was going to leave the show. And I think that she was right in that decision. Going forward, I don't know how the audience is going to react because I think that the ratings will take a dip. The other women are just not interesting enough to hold this show because really the only two interesting cast members are Jen, Shaw, and Mary. And with both of them gone, I just don't see the longevity for Salt Lake City. I feel like it's just gonna be canceled and benched like the Dallas Housewives. What do you guys think? So then we have Jenny apologizing to Lisa, saying that she really didn't mean to cause a scene at Lisa's event. Lisa then says, "Oh, I don't care." And I'm like, are we supporting throwing glass and objects at one of our co-stars? I didn't think that was a good look for Lisa, but I do think they're all gonna care next season when their ratings begin to drop because I feel like it's inevitable that their ratings will start plummeting with the loss of Mary. So Jen Shaw begins to go on and on about how Meredith is not willing to kind of put their differences aside and rekindle their friendship. Meredith is in a space where she really doesn't want to be friends with Jen Shaw, and I really don't blame her. I mean, these are grown women. It's Meredith's prerogative if she wants to be friends with Jen Shaw or not. Then Jen Shaw kind of brings up Meredith's marriage, and Meredith kind of loses her mind. She was like, don't bring up my marriage. And in the confessionals, Meredith said, she has information on the other women about, what they have been doing in their own marriages. And I'm like, Meredith, bring the tea. We need to see the receipts because the way Lisa and Jen Shaw have been talking about you and your marriage has been absolute trash. So after the exchange between Jen and Meredith, the whole season kind of ends. They start rolling the credits and the cards, and we have a scene of Jen and Lisa talking about Meredith, I guess sleeping with half of the Upper East Side. And at this point, I'm like, ladies, this is old tea. Seth knows his wife kind of stepped out on the marriage because they both agreed to date other people. This isn't new tea to Seth or their family. At this point, if what Meredith said in her confessional is true, that she has sort of tea on the other ladies, I would be more concerned about myself and Meredith exposing my tea rather than me trying to expose some stale tea on Meredith that her husband and her family already know. Anyways, the season ends and everyone gets their card. I'm just happy that this one right here didn't get any, to be continued storyline because she's absolutely off the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. So tell me below, what do you guys think of the season? Are you going to continue watching Salt Lake City? Let me know. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up, share, comment below, and subscribe to the channel.